So in today's video, we're going to be going over a bunch of leaked documents about Black Ops 3 Zombies, revealing all of its deepest secrets, all of the intel and cut documents that the developers didn't want us to know and see, what we missed out on, and some secrets that have been dormant for a very long time. Over the past couple of weeks, developer documents have been leaked for Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3 Zombies. I did a video last week talking about Transit and BO2's leaks, planning to make a video on Black Ops 3's, but I went away, and when I came back, the documents were taken down by Google on the orders of Activision. So unfortunately, because I didn't download them, I don't have these documents in front of me, but Margwa Network over on Twitter has done a big roundup of some of the info that was included in them, starting with the Rising Tracker. We knew that Dr. Groff was the antagonist for that map, but as a part of Treyarch's original plans, it was going to be Dr. Schuster. How this would have affected the storyline is difficult to say, considering both of these scientists worked very closely to Richtofen, but we do know, later on down the line in Classified, Schuster had a big role to play in that map, and considering Groff died on the moon in Der Eisendrache when it was blown up, maybe if Treyarch went along with Schuster being the antagonist in Der Eisendrache, then he wouldn't be a part of Classified storyline, and maybe Groff would take his place. But apparently he was trying to stop Primus, as them doing the Easter egg would have resulted in the universe dying, which almost, if that did happen, would totally change the storyline. The Ice Bow was replaced by the Wolf Bow, and the Ice Bow would have been what the Lightning Bow does now, but instead would freeze enemies. The Lightning Bow would have created a ball of electricity that sucked zombies in, and the Wind Bow was replaced by the Void Bow. And the final interesting leaked fact about Der Eisendrache is that the moon blowing up seemingly would have been a part of a side Easter egg, but was then made into the actual main Easter egg itself, which is interesting because a lot of the times you don't have to do side Easter eggs. So would it have been a choice if you blew up the moon, and then if you didn't do the side Easter egg, what would have been the result in the next map? If you didn't blow it up, then would Schuster have still been alive in the storyline for you? But for people who did, he would have been dead. Anyway, moving on to Gorod Kuriva, which has even more interesting information in my opinion. This map would have had an Iron Man-esque suit that was needed to beat the Easter egg. It would have only been active for a limited amount of time, and you would have had to get fuel from zombies. This was originally pitched as having Nikolai's mech suit, which would have been needed to open up certain doors, but it could be upgraded to have missiles, a grappling hook, and more fuel. We have heard this one before. Every time I see it brought up again, I almost cry, because imagine being able to use a mech suit in COD Zombies to open up certain doors, and then you could upgrade it to have missiles that I'm assuming you could shoot zombies with, and a grappling hook maybe to pull these zombies in and get to higher locations. In the end, this was changed so only Nikolai in the boss fight had it, but I think it would have been great if in that boss fight we also had a mech suit so that we could fight Nikolai, who still would have had his. To me, that changes one of the biggest disappointments out of the bunch to know what we could have had. But continuing on, the Pack-a-Punch machine would have been located on top of a tall building that would have been accessible by the dragons, and to ride them, players would have needed hooks to latch onto them. I'm assuming maybe the grapple from the mech suit would have been a part of this, I'm not sure. There was also planned to be supply drop Easter eggs where you could get a weapon buy, power-ups, random perks, random gobblegums, fuel, or even a mystery box. Instead of players needing drop pods to access the Pack-a-Punch, they instead needed drop pods to defend in order to give power to certain doors. And the final thing for Gorod is the trials were called Reznov challenges, with it being implied that they were from Reznov himself. It would have been themed around the concept of a lone wolf plotting revenge against the Germans. Now, we know Reznov is a part of the COD Zombie storyline. We actually see a reference to him in Gorod Kuriva itself. This sign right here that says "Vengeance is mine, VR" is a Reznov saying, and we see his initials. So Reznov was in Gorod Kuriva, and Treyarch's original plan was to have the trials on the map called the Reznov Trials, which, as the name implies, were going to be from him. I always wanted to learn more about Reznov's involvement in the COD Zombie storyline. Maybe there wasn't anything, but Treyarch could have easily added more stuff in future maps. There's only one or two hints that we get towards his existence in the universe. The idea of him giving us trials to do would have been cool. Why Treyarch decided against it, I am not sure. Maybe at that time they just didn't want campaign characters to be too involved in the storyline. Nowadays we know it's totally different. But yeah, that was the original plan, and apparently I saw this mentioned on COD Zombies Lore Facts, although it isn't mentioned on Margwa Network's post, and I can't confirm it for myself because the files have been taken down. But the 4 gravestones that you see in Gorod Kuriva's spawn room were actually meant to be the graves of Chernovs, Duletsky, Kozin, and Petrenko, Reznov's men affiliated with the Red Army. To be honest, I've never thought about who these gravestones belong to, because one, they don't have proper grave stones with names on them, but it's clear that 4 people were buried here. So if this is true, and it makes sense considering they are buried next to Reznov's sign, which says "Vengeance is mine," if these 4 graves belong to his men, then the whole idea of Reznov's challenges makes sense. Placing his sign, Vengeance is Mine, next to the burial site of his soldiers, wanting to get revenge for what the Germans did. Moving on to Setsubo no Shima, there wasn't really any leaks about this map, besides from the perk locations would have been randomized and dropped by a plane at the start of the match, and there being transportation via gondolas. For Revelations, Trog were interested in adding any and every location they could into that map, not just the areas that we see such as Origins, Shangri-La, Der Eisendrache, Kino, Verrückt, Shiranuma. They thought about adding many other locations into that map from zombies, such as the Gorod Karuvi spawn room and the Ruby Rabbit location from Shadows of Evil, swimming, random perk locations, jump pads, teleporters, and the Gorod Karuvi cut mech suit would have all been incorporated into Revelations, along with the bows, the dragon gauntlets, the skull of Nansapur, and the swords. I can see why they would have had to cut a lot of this, but I can also see why they would have wanted to add it, because that's what Revelations was. It was a combination of almost every element of all of our zombies maps. They also wanted to add in the Thrashers, the Panzer, the Margwa, the Elementals, the Parasites, Spiders, Valkyries, and the Mangalas. Some of them we already have in the game. And finally, a dog arena mechanic would have been added to the Kino location, where there was a ton of challenges for rewards that you could do. So Trog thought about adding in just about everything that they could into Revelations from Zombies history. They had to pick and select which part of which prior Zombies map they wanted to put into it. For the Giant, nothing really changed, which on one hand is surprising, but on the other hand, considering it's essentially a remaster of a prior map, they didn't have to really change anything, because the Restrust, in my opinion, was already a almost perfect map. For me, that is an S tier Zombies map. Trog didn't really have too much to cut. They did add a couple of things, such as the giant Easter egg where you could get a secret perk, but that's all there is to tell for that map. And finally, for Shadows of Evil, Margwas would have been able to lockpick machines and the mystery box, similar to what Brutus can do in Mob of the Dead. Trog wanted randomized perk locations, in which you would be able to tell the locations by looking for half-broken perk bottles on the ground by each district. That's essentially what we have anyway. The main Easter egg would have been a lot different. You initially would have had to have gotten an Apothicon with its eyes closed. You would have to complete 5 different challenges in order to open all of the eyes and awaken it. Then once you return it, the final battle would start. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what the hell I've just read. There were cut areas from the subway. These would have been connecting the districts to the subway, but instead they were replaced by the portals. That would have been cool, but I think it is just easier to teleport from one area to the other instead of having to walk through an underground subway system. And Margwa Networks also noted down the original pitch for Shadows of Evil, where our 4 main characters would have woken up in a hotel room next to the 4 murder scenes. The layout of the map would have stayed relatively similar except for a hotel, which likely turned into the Pack-a-Punch room and rooftops. Players would have needed to use soul points to transform into the beast. The Margwa's main attack would have been a ranged ooze attack that shot from its tentacles, and it would have been able to teleport. Widow's Wine would have created spiders when the player reloads, which would run and wrap a cocoon around zombies. The main Easter egg would have ended with the Shadow Man being destroyed. The cutscene would have been a 4th wall break, where the players themselves are revealed to have been the ones responsible for everything. That's interesting. So a pretty different ending to Shadows of Evil. The one that we have, the Shadow Man becomes trapped inside of the summoning key. And the final thing about this map, players would have been able to earn points during a match that they could use to upgrade stuff, like adding camos or optics to box weapons, improving recoil, clip size, rate of fire, etc. You would have been able to add specific weapons to the box. And we may as well talk about Zombies Chronicles as well, considering it was a part of Black Ops 3. Trog started development in February of 2015, so they were making it before Black Ops 3 released. It came out in May of 2017. World at War maps would have had the Pack-a-Punch machine added to them. Verrückt would have been next to the morgue. Nax would have been behind a full store that was needed to be opened, like it is in Derice. They did have the idea of putting it on top of the roof, and you would have needed to do something to shoot it down, or simply they would have just put it under the staircase. And the Pack-a-Punch machine in Shiranuma would have moved around to each area. So that one for me is a little bit disappointing, because even though it stays faithful to the originals not having a Pack-a-Punch machine in Nacht, Verrückt and Shiranuma, just imagine how much better and different of an experience those maps would have been if we had the Pack-a-Punch machine, because it makes all the difference. I know Trog were trying to stay faithful to the originals, but I think it would have been better if we had a Pack-a-Punch machine on the Zombies Chronicles version of those maps. And if you didn't want it, you could just go back and play the originals, or not use it. But yeah, there we go. As with a lot of games, Black Ops 3 Zombies could have been a lot different if Treyarch decided to go with some of their original plans. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and what out of this list do you wish Treyarch kept. Drop a like rating if you've enjoyed, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with latest videos on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.